this afternoon, on this chilly, beautiful afternoon?
Good.
Well, we're going to get started, and I'd like to welcome that huge crowd that's sitting out there in the audience. Welcome to our board meeting. I will now begin. It is now 6 p.m., and I call this meeting of the La Ferre Independent School District to order. That the records show that a quorum of board members are present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Please stand.
Lord God, we thank you for the blessings you have bestowed upon our district and community. We pray for those affected by this weather. May they find shelter and warmth during these next couple of days. And we ask you for your guidance, wisdom, and support during this meeting, and help us to engage in meaningful discussions. In Jesus Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Ms. Montalvo. Do you have a motion to approve the minutes of December 11th, 2023? A motion by Mrs. Martinez.
I second.
And a second by Mrs. Johnson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And the next item is school board recognition month.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to come up here so we can thank you all, but Ms. Ramos has a few things to say first.
Good evening, Board President Ms. Castillo, board members, Ms. Torres. January is School Board Recognition Month, and La Feria ISD is celebrating its trustees for their dedication and commitment to the district and its students. The theme of this year's School Board Recognition Month is locally elected, community connected, which highlights the connection between school trustees and their communities. School board members are the largest group of locally elected officials in the state. Our board's members are vital. Their dedication, vision, and commitment shape the future of our schools and students, and we thank you tonight. Tonight, we would like to recognize our school board members, starting with our school board president, Ms. Jane Castillo.
They'll come to the front and then we're going to take a picture. Our students were all excited to be here, and then we decided because of the weather to let them.
Our vice president, Ms. Katie Johnson.
Is she photobombing?
Secretary, Ms. Alma Martinez.
I thought maybe you were doing something.
Board member, Mr. Juan Briones. Board member, Ms. Gloria Casas.
I know you have 28 of these somewhere.
Board member, Ms. Lisa Montalvo.
No cartwheels. Yes.
And board member, Mr. Ruben Zambrano, but unfortunately he was not able to.
You want to take a picture? We can have half at the bottom and half at the top.
The short one to the bottom?
Yes.
You get in the middle.
Okay, 1, 2, 3,
visible here tonight, but we want to thank the campuses. She represents our principal from Sanchez Elementary, but all of our campuses and a couple of our departments provided some treats for you for board appreciation. So thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you all for everything you do.
Thank you for the weather. And we took Mr. Zambrano's treat to his wife because he's in Austin, so whether he ever sees them or not, we have no idea. Thank you so much. Do we have anyone that has signed up for public comment? Thank you. The first information item is Superintendent Performance Goal 2, Activity 1, School Safety.
Thank you, Board President Castillo. So the first item tonight from the Superintendent Performance Goals, this is the last month of the goals that were set last year. And we will move forward next month, coming up with new goals for the new year after we have our team building next Monday night. And so the first item we're going to discuss is school safety. So when we talked about this last year, we talked about wanting to have a safety day. And so under the leadership of Mrs. Ramos and her team, instead of just having one day, we ended up having 3 days. And so within that time, I know Ms. Vinto assisted and also Mr. Flores assisted and helped out. And I think Mr. Vela did some things as well to help out. But they provided presentations for our elementary and our secondary, and it was a little bit different. They used the Texas School Safety Center, and so they provided in the different areas and also had different drills. And so this is something that I think that next year, whether it's a goal or not, we will continue, because I think those, at the very beginning of the year, those safety days, emphasizing those specific topics were very important. Any questions about the 3 safety days?
Now, I know we had them in the fall. Are we scheduling any
No.
for the spring?
No, we're not scheduling specific safety days. We have other things. The campuses will still probably have different types of presentations, but as far as a safety day to stop instruction, because we're getting to the spring and a lot going on, we will not have a specific safety day. So we geared them mainly toward the fall.
Any other questions? The next item is Superintendent Performance Goal 2, Activity 4, Training on Vaping and Fentanyl.
One of the other areas of concern, I know that when we went to the legislative, a bunch of us went last year to Austin, and I know when we went to the governor's house and spoke to Governor Abbott, one of the things we talked about was fentanyl and just the big concern with that. And then when we were at the Dallas conference, we went to sessions and it talked about, we had some scary videos, you could say, about just how fast that happens. And so we provided some training to our parents. We talked about how do you get, I think it was Mrs. Casas, I met with her and she asked me, how do you get more parental involvement? You know, she was asking, we had one presentation, we had 23, then we had 19 parents and then 7 parents. And we've noticed that any time that we have presentations or we have performances by students, we have more. We had 2 town halls. One of them, we didn't have a presentation and we had 7. The next one we did, we had 40. And so a presentation makes all the difference. So that's something that we'll look at. We also had presentations to our students at Dominguez Junior High and High School, where all the students heard about that as well. I attended the one at the high school, and very eye-opening to students on how fast that happens, how you have to be so careful about just asking a friend, can I have some Tylenol? Because you never know what that, not that they mean to do that, but you just never know. So just being very careful. And so this is something that we will not stop again with these type of presentations. Where also, I talked to Ms. Ramos today, and with our coordinator for our nursing, we're beginning the next step that y'all approved last month about, what is it called, ma'am?
Narcan?
Yes, about the training for that, and the nurses have all been trained. Now they're going to train the staff, so that will be the next step that we take with that, to make sure that we have that available should something happen.
It was a very good, he was a DEA
Out of Dallas.
out of Dallas, and it was phenomenal.
Yes.
I mean, the things that they have to go
Yeah, and
Or
just letting us know what to.
look
what we-
for and
yes.
expect what could happen.
That was a good presentation.
Any questions? Thank you. The next item is Superintendent Performance Goal 4, Activity 1, the mentorship program.
We're excited with our after-school ACE program because one of the programs or initiatives that they're implementing, and Mr. Flores has shared this with me, and Mr. Garcia as our director of the ACE program, is their mentorship program. They have 11 students that they are working with that are being trained, and they're going to monthly go down and mentor the students. And so that is one mentorship program that we've already started. There's a second mentorship program that we're looking at applying for a grant. It's called the Hope Squad, and Mrs. Ramos is discussing that at this point. And I shared that with a couple of board members too. And when we received the grant for Mr. Cavazos, the executive director from the Valley Baptist is the one that shared that information, and they currently have that in a neighboring district. But it's a mentorship, student peer-to-peer, for depression, for anxiety, for suicidal, situations. And so that's something we're looking at, getting that training and getting that going so that we can implement that, another mentorship. Excuse me. And then, of course, we have our second meeting this Wednesday, our first meeting for this month is coming Wednesday with our mental health, that we're still identifying the roles and responsibilities and seeing what we need to do with that.
Very good.
Very good. Okay, the next, if there are no other questions, the next item is the benchmark.
Mr. Flores will be presenting on our benchmark score. I just need to.
Good evening, Board President Castillo, Superintendent of the Schools, Mrs. Flores, and members of the board. Before you, you have the results of our benchmark number 1 that our students took in December. Right now you have them by school, then after that you'll see them that they are by subject and by grade level. We've also provided you last year's results side by side. Just a reminder that last year's accountability is different than this year's accountability. So what we also did for you is, if you look at benchmark number 1, 2023, where you see performance levels, approaches, meets, and then masters, they're at the very top. We put in parentheses what the passing percentage is this year. So for example, performance level, the approaches level for 3rd grade reading language arts is a 35. Meets is a 54, and masters is a 73.
Could you just, to refresh my memory, could you tell us what does it mean, approaches and needs and masters? What does that indicate about the student?
Approaches is just meeting the standard, whereas masters and meets is at a higher grade level.
Meets
of
is
course,
considered
When
like
you
grade
say-
level.
When you say meets the standards, you mean they passed, no más?
Approaches means they passed.
The state
Yes.
standard.
The state standard, yes, ma'am.
And
Masters
meets-
takes it and says that they will score better in the next grade level.
And meets
Is like on grade level.
on grade level. Okay.
So in parentheses, you have that amongst all of them. Basically, our approaches, if we look at benchmark number 1, if we go down on approaches, starting with Bell, then heading down to Sanchez, you see that our approaches is high. Our numbers are high there. They are high in all grades, in all schools. What we need to focus on is our meets and our masters.
So, when you say 35, or 30, what is it, 30?
It's a 35, it's
35,
like a
that
35
means
out of 100.
They had to pass 35% to pass, it's not like they
That
had
is
to
correct.
pass 70 to at least get a 70.
No,
As long as they did a third
35 or better.
of what was expected, they're considered passing.
Yes, ma'am.
When the state changed the accountability, last year was 50%, just to meet the standard. Not again to be on grade level, but to meet the standard of the test, it was 50%. When they added the writing to the reading and they changed the test, they change it to 35%. So you're right, 35 out of 100, and they say you meet the standard. For meets, it's 54%. So you're saying to be on grade level, the state is saying, we evaluated the test, and we feel like if you can get 53% of the questions right, you are on grade level. And that's the accountability from the state. Last year, the accountability of the state was to be on grade level was 74. Not even 70% as we look at it, it was 74. So when you look at this, and we look at approaches, meets, and masters, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna kinda talk, we were above in everything in approaches but 2 grade levels, which was 7th grade math and 8th grade social studies. And so when it looks at data, it looks like we're going up. You know, it's a different test. They all have writing now. Back last year, you know, maybe the accountability was different. They had writing, but it wasn't the same passing standard. So you have to look at that. So then, even if we go from, I'm gonna take last year's 3rd graders and see how they did at 4th, we can do that. But last year's passing standards were higher than this year's passing standards. So they do that any time that they change the accountability, they completely change what it is to pass. So trying to explain to parents, our concern is, yes, you know, Ms. Martinez passed, but she got a 36. And so she needs to get, according to the state, a 52 to be on grade level. And in the old tax way back then, if you passed, we were just, you know, parents were excited when my child passed. But for us to say, do we think 35% is good? No. So when you look at 3rd grade, if you add the 42 and the 5, at mid-year, we have 47% that are above approaches at the middle. This test was comprehensive. In other words, if they took a test for 3rd grade, it was all of the TEKS all the way to May. So 47% on grade level at the mid-year, maybe so, because you've only covered half of the TEKS, half of the items, you could say, up to that point. The concern that we have to really look at, and I'm gonna have you jump to a lower one, look at, for example, 5th grade science. 5th grade science, we have 37% that are at meets and masters. So we should have half of them, you could say, you know, so that's where we have to look at, and then you look at the percentage. So do we have work? Yes. Are we working toward what the accountability is? Yes, but you really have to understand the accountability.
Well, the concern that I see here is that, you know, we're saying that, 69, it's, if you go on the first line, 69%, or 69 students, is that what that means, 69 students?
No, ma'am, just 69%.
Okay, 69% of our class, our students, or, have learned a third of what has been taught. Is that a correct assumption?
In addition to that question, sir?
In order.
Yes, ma'am, a third, 35%, yes.
Yeah.
But is that,
Barely over a third.
okay, but at that time, child will not be under meets, correct, or no?
No,
Okay, it's just under, approaches. No, that's fine, I get it now. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
so then you look at math where you have, yes, I see what you're talking about. Explain about how it feeds into the 42%, because the 5 and the 42 and the
Are part of the
69
69.
are a part of the 69.
That's what I thought.
And then and that doesn't add up to 100% because that
Right.
other are the ones that did not pass.
So you may have a child under approaches, meets, and masters? or-
The 5 master students
Yeah.
are listed under all of them.
Okay, I see, I get it.
So subtract 5 from 42, 37% got meets only.
Okay.
And then subtract the 47 from 69, and that's how many only got approaches. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And then the other ones, you had 31% that didn't pass at all, that didn't get 35%.
Wow. I am so glad I don't have to do this anymore. It's very confusing.
might-
It
Yeah,
is,
it's
it's very
It's,
confusing.
well, it's kind of confusing, it's kind of misleading, you know?
That's why we wanted to do the side by side, and Mr. Flores added the percentage of 50 and 35, because I could easily put 69%, 89%, and if you would look at third grade math and say, well, Cindy, y'all got 86% at least passing, that's terrific, because in your mind, that's 70%.
Right.
So you're thinking you got 70% passing at 70%. That's why we wanted to put not only what it was last year, what it is this year. Something that the principals, and I'm looking at you because we had that discussion, something that they do is they take last year's scores and they put everybody, like Mr. Brianna's last year was at meets, and so he's got a green card. And they put all last year's scores here, and then if they were meets, and then all the masters in red, and all the yellow, and so what we need to do is, he may have gotten meets in last year's test, but I need him to go to masters now. I need him to go above being on grade level, and if I really want him to show progress, he can't just stay on grade level, he needs to try to get above grade level. So it's easy to go into Ms. Gonzalez's data room and see benchmark to benchmark, why did he go into the yellow category? Why is he over here in approaches when he got meets last year? Or look at this one that was yellow last year, and they're over here in the red, they're in the masters. So you can just glance and see where they are, because you can look at last year's scores, you can look at what is the percentage to pass, but overall, we need the students to do better than
Right.
they did the year before.
The
And that's
expectation is
progress.
higher, definitely.
So it's really, that's what we look at is, are you making progress from one year to another? You have to, are you getting that year's worth of instruction at least, or more? Because if you go from third grade to fourth grade, and you go from here and you go over here, then that means you didn't even gain that years of instruction. And wherever you started out. So if you started out at this point, you know, if I'm a fifth grader and I'm in a second grade level, I need to go at least to third, hopefully to fourth. But if I'm a third grader and I should be at the fifth grade level and I only go half a year in third grade, then next year I'm gonna be further and further behind. That's the whole purpose of that, and I know that doesn't make
One
sense.
of the things that I really wish we would be able to do is to have the parent understand the fact that your child passed means that he grasped a third of what was taught. That is why this after-school program is so important. Me as a parent, if I had one of my child be at that point, then I'd be knocking the door, can my
Right
son
after
come
school.
to the after-school program?
Right, and the state, in their best effort, started putting out these, flyers of trying to explain that. It's just really hard for them to, you know,
Well,
understand that.
The thing is, parents just wanna hear,
That passed.
no,
Yeah.
and that's all they understand, and you can't blame them, that's how our society has always been,
Mhm.
you know, at least he passed. But the state keeps lowering what their child needs to do to quote-unquote pass.
Yes, yes.
And so I think it would help our community to explain to the parent, you know, the door to the after-school program. I mean, go knock and make sure your child gets that extra.
I do have a
Yes,
question.
ma'am.
I know that, when they started the ACE program, right off the bat, they had a parent meeting, for all the parents that were interested into going. And, the way I understood it from the coordinator that was at Vail, is that they actually had this data established, and they assigned a certain percentage of the kids that were, struggling. And then they reached out to them, and then another percentage, a lower percentage, were for the master's students. So they had a combination of kids, that wanted, honestly, some parents, even when I go pick up my kid for a doctor's appointment, is there availability, can we get our son, they're actually knocking. So some parents are, because they're aware, or because, you know, the circumstance, they need somebody to have their child in that program while they get, you know, to work, or from out of work. So, are they still continue pushing that data information?
I'll let
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am, just
Flood-
recently met with Mr. Gonzalez and Mr. Garcia, and that is what they're doing. They basically took this data and they're looking at it right now. What they first did was look at the students that they currently have right now in the program. And then they're reaching out to the coordinators at the campus saying, okay, we have these names here, we know, because I share with him all the data, not just his data. And so I'm giving him names, I'm telling him, these
We
are the
need these
students that we need
better
to
kids
reach
in-
out to, can you, it's for me, giving it to him giving it to his coordinator, the coordinator then reaching out to the principal saying, okay, I need to recruit Humberto, he's not doing well, let's call the parent, and that's what they're doing right now, they're recruiting.
And the teachers, what role do they play? If they know that Eddie Casas is barely approaches, and Ms. Sanchez is Eddie's teacher, is there any way that Ms. Sanchez can talk to Ms. Casas and say, it would be benefit your child so much if you would put him in this program?
Yes, ma'am.
I think hearing it from the teacher would definitely make a recruitment of the child
More impactful.
more.
Cause, let me mention something, I know that they're reaching out, my son is in first grade right now, and they're actually teaching them that, and he's not taking the STAR yet, but they're showing them already, by the time they get to STAR, I'm in green, cause he came to me and said, Mom, cause I understand what he was saying, he said, Mom, I'm in the green, I had growth. So I know that the kids are teaching them that, but I know that last year, when he was with Mr. Martinez, which kindergarten, I know that they, not taking STAR yet, but they're preparing, the teachers are preparing them for the next year. They had, parent meetings, and they had benchmarks and then they made it a sure, to let the parents know where their kid, was at.
I can
So-
tell you the data rooms have it from pre-K all the way up. There's a green, a red, and a yellow, or whatever, all the way from the beginning, because in pre-K, you should know your letters, you should be able to blend, you should know they have that in pre-K. So when and I'm sorry, you're the only one here, so I'm pointing at you.
Sorry.
So when I go to Sanchez, I can go to, in any of the campuses, I can go to the pre-K and I can see which ones are on grade level for their letters and their sounds and their numbers, and which ones aren't, and what they're doing. They do it from pre-K all the way up with those coloring, type of systems. And so anytime that y'all would wanna go by and see what I'm talking about, you kinda have to see it. You're welcome to go, and I'll take you to one of the data rooms just so you can visualize what I'm talking about. And then on those cards, besides it just being yellow or red or green, it has their actual scores. So I can go and I can pull out Elena, and I can see Elena did this the first test, this the second test, last year she did this, where's she going, what's being done. The campuses also have their own data for every single student, and they have the binders, because you showed me, not only is it on the wall, but it's in the binders, and they have that in their system. Junior high, theirs is not so much on the wall, but everything is on data, on this with them, and when they come in, they put it up there, and that, so everybody does it like that.
See, to me, Ms. Torres and Ms. Roberts, to me, this is data, and this is interesting. I appreciate we're going live tonight. What I would like to see is more so is what are we doing to go to the next level? Have we met the goals for the after-school program? I know there's so many kids per campus. Have we met those goals? Because it would be such a waste to have that resource and people not use it. I went to one of the sessions they had. I was so impressed. I was super impressed with the attitude of the staff, Mr. Rodriguez. I forget the name of the other gentleman that was there, the presenter they had. Every child in La Feria should have been in that little class that they had.
Part of our ACE program is we've already had a visit from the state, an on-site go to our class visit to make sure we're staying with our goals. Looking at our paperwork, looking at everything that we're doing. So they have to send in reports constantly to show academic, all of these different areas that we said we were going to address. Are we addressing those areas? And again, we've already had a site visit where they've come in and visited all the campus to make sure that the after-school program is doing what it needs to. Looking at the numbers, looking at the number of students, looking at what they're doing, lesson plans, all of that.
So are we meeting the number
Yes.
for each campus?
Where
If
we-
they say, okay, we need to have, I don't know.
We're supposed to have 100 at our elementary, and we're supposed to have 50 at our secondary. I can tell you at high school,
And we have until the end of the summer to reach that goal then. We don't wanna wait until the end of summer,
Of course not.
but, when I spoke to Mr. Garcia, we're getting there.
yeah, we're
There-
on,
Some
right.
campuses are there more than others.
Is it 100 per camp? No.
100 for elementary and 50
So
for
it's like
secondary.
30 for each one?
No, 100 for each elementary.
Oh, for
Yes,
each
ma'am.
one. Oh,
And the
wow.
100 students have to go at least 60
60
days. So we have students that come, and you know, Ms. Martinez, some don't come
Yeah.
frequently, and so we have to make sure that they come 60 days. At the high school, I can tell you, we're already over the 50 because of their involvement and some of the extracurricular types of things that we're doing. The challenge that we have is to make sure that those students come on a regular basis and not just come a couple of times a week, but they do come
Have
consistently.
we done, I know that every time I look at Facebook, our face, for La Feria, I see all these wonderful things that are happening. Is there any way we can do something that highlights this program? I mean, we're very blessed to have this after-school program. Not all schools get it.
Mhm.
I mean, can we highlight and make it known to the parents, the resource that we have in the district?
Mhm. We have highlighted, and we'll highlight even more to let them know to reach out for us. To let them to know to reach out to us if they have questions about that, but we can highlight that some more.
Now, I have a question, and I know you're trying to reach a goal of 100 at each campus, but I guess this is not a bad, I'm not minimizing the importance of this ACE program, I mean, it's a wonderful program, obviously. But for that student that you can't reach, you have other programs during the day, correct, that you're going to reach, meaning that you will assist the student?
Yes, we do. We
Okay.
have interventions, we have pullouts, so we utilize, our teachers and staff members to assist with that. So yes,
Okay.
we do,
So
we
in
do
case you
target,
can't, yes.
yes,
In
for
case you
those,
can't get them in the afternoon.
correct.
Okay.
It's taking place during the day.
Okay, that's all I was gonna ask.
Mr. Flores, I have a question. I'm concerned about the junior high math.
Yes, ma'am, so for math, we've already met with Ms. Jimenez, Ms. Joy, and Mrs. Miles to discuss what are the changes that we're doing for this semester. So they have hired consultants to come in just to focus on those 3 topics. We've already reached out to Region 1. Region 1 is going to come in and do blitzes or blitz reviews in the areas of science, social studies, and math as well. So they are revising they're going back and they're looking at what they're doing. So every Friday, they're supposed to be doing some type of a review or a blitz in the area of math, science, and social studies. I know you just mentioned one subject, but they're focusing on all 3.
Because the social studies one down is a concern also that we have. So when we say a blitz, they look at which areas, what teaks, which topics are they having trouble with? And on Fridays, reviewing
They
those
focus on
that they're having difficulty
Yeah,
with.
because I know that
Yes.
if they don't get it there in the junior high, they struggle so hard
The
when
high
they get,
school.
Now, my
We-
but thank you.
A point that I've shared this with Mrs. Torres, we went back and we looked at the TEKS that have already been taught, and when we just look at the TEKS that have been taught, the percentage goes up for social studies and science. So that's a good thing, because of course, this test was a comprehensive test, so we tested
The whole year.
the whole year.
So
Mhm.
like in social studies, that's one of the things, they're not even getting half of the material until, all the way through April. And so we've already tested them on parts of history that they haven't even covered. And so I did ask for, and I'll include it in the weekly update, tell me what they scored on what had been covered. And so we noticed that the science and social studies went up quite a bit. I still have the concerns about the math, and we are
Mhm.
focusing on that.
Okay, thank you.
So, my question is, what are we doing for the students who have not, met approaches? And who have not met approaches for the last couple of years? Let's say, they're in 5th grade now, but they've never, since 3rd grade.
Here's
What are we doing
yeah.
different?
Here's an example that I can use at one of the elementaries. I don't think it was at yours, but I had a student that made a 12, okay? Made a 12 last year. So then I'm looking, and the student may still not have passed, but they may have been at a 28. So are we seeing gain? What are we doing to see that gain so that for that student that hasn't even met approaches, I want them to make approaches. Yes, it's not where we need to be, and then the next year move here and move here. So when we look at the data, again, you've gotta see it going up. We did have a couple of these tests that we noticed that students maybe scored a 50 last year and met the standard, and then they went down to a 38. So then I have to say, why did you have a 50 and now you're going down to a 38? And then we look at that data, because again, you can't go backwards. You've gotta go forwards, and you've gotta be doing better. So then we have to, We have data meetings, they meet with their PLCs and discuss specific plans of actions and
And I guess my question, are those the students that we're focusing on to attend the ACE program, or those?
And I'm
you know,
going to say,
additional-
I'm sorry, Ms. Montcalf, to interrupt you, not all students are wanting to come to ACE. But some of the students, what we're doing is for those are the ones that we're reaching out to the parents and saying, can they come and just stay for tutoring for the 45 and not the 2 hours? So that's what we're working on. So the campuses have started tutoring, they have hired consultants as well. So that's another avenue.
some of them
Yeah.
don't wanna stay till 6, but they'll stay for tutoring for an hour. And so they're really in tutoring part of ACE, because the first hour is academic, the second hour is the enrichment. So some of them will stay for that first hour, they just don't wanna be there for 2 hours. And I'm okay with the student that will at least stay for the tutoring.
So we have the ACE, the teacher that's staying for tutoring, or like Ms. Cavazos Gonzalez explained, that have that intervention period or that intervention time. And some of the schools have even done other pullouts, an additional pullout to address the students who don't go to ACE, don't wanna come to tutoring, or don't come to tutoring, so that they are, focused on during the day.
When we benchmarked in December, and this was taken in December, we had staff development days in December and also in January. And one of the biggest things they did during that staff development was look at the data and plan for the spring. And we gave them a day to meet in their departments to determine, what am I gonna do for Tom, and what am I gonna do for Susie, and what am I gonna do based upon how they scored. And that was what that day was spent on, is just planning.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I'm gonna follow up with Ms. Montalvo's, for those kids that are not in approaches, and the ones that are struggling as well. Is there, what are you guys doing with the parents? I mean, the parents are you guys, scheduling meetings? Those meetings are important, because I know that, like, if you call me and my son is struggling or whatever, is there any way to not host events or anything like that, just schedule Zoom meetings, phone calls if they can't come in, send a letter, actual official letterhead from the campus saying, you know, your student is in this, we reached out these times to let you know, or the teacher, because I know the teacher reaches out to me and say, can you, Ms. Martinez, can you come, can you let me know I have this parent coming at this time at my parent conference this day, so just so they are aware of, and let them know the services, because some people are better one-to-one. They see the social media page, it's great and everything, but that one-to-one makes it more, and praise them for the areas that they are growth, so they understand that, but and said, okay, we need your son or daughter to be in this level, but they're doing amazing here, there's a great growth, because I know that one-to-one is the best to get the parents involved. If it's just a parent conference or Zoom meeting or something that is, that works for the teacher.
And those meetings are usually gonna happen now that we have that, the first data, the first benchmark, which is here, and that's when those meetings with the parents will start. Or can
And
be.
that is true parental engagement. You know, not the meetings for the kids or parental involvement, however you wanna call it, because, yes, we want to have numbers of parental involvement. We had 3,000 parents that participated in our campus. But the most important, to me, the most important context or the engagement, where the parent truly knows where their child is, truly understands at what quality the child is going to go from one grade to another grade. Yes, they do it during the day and this and that and what have you, but why waste that extra engagement that the child, enrichment that the child can get?
Well, I know some, that's awesome. And I remember I would get calls from Marley's teacher, Ms. Johnson, she's not doing good in math. Can you come visit or have a conference with me? And I would go. So I know they do that, but then you have some parents that they go, okay, thank you, and so it's a struggle.
Well, we have to find a way to
Yes,
engage them.
exactly.
And then
But it is a struggle.
And see also if students are in that lower, not approaches and they still decline the next year and there's no, is there any type of, evaluation that is needed? Or is there something going at home that we, that's when you start seeing other areas that need to be affected as parent. So I do believe that parent contact, no matter if they're gonna be not, involved or not, if you'll see the gap getting closer, and it's a team effort between the community, the parents, and the school, and the teachers, and
From the administration point of view, and I hope that you don't mind that I speak for you, ma'am, I mean, the teachers, counselors, administrators, they're on top of that.
Yes.
Oh, yes, yeah.
They are.
And through, at my time, we didn't have ACE, but we had after-school programs, we had during class time, and if we just could not reach that child, even with a parent contact, we resorted to other assistance, so I know it's happening.
Well, and the problem is that even though it's happening, we're not seeing the results. We're still having kids at approaches, knowing only a third of what they're supposed to know.
But the test has changed, ma'am, for
and
this
so-
school year, it's
And so
changed.
what I'm saying, we cannot, you know, at any point say, well, yeah, we did everything we can, blah, blah, blah. I think at this point, even getting the community involved in, let's recognize the campus that got all the kids that, in that ACE program or whatever. You know, let's recognize that campus, let's recognize that principal, let's recognize, and I'm positive that if I was to go to businesses here in La Feria and say, we're gonna this is a program we have, and we're trying to increase enrollment, how much can you donate so that we can treat that campus to something? You know, campus is like recognition for their hard work, and I'm positive that La Feria is a type of community that will say, here's $200, here's $100, recognize that campus for their extra, going beyond the call of duty. Because really, that's what they're gonna be doing, going beyond the call of duty. And I just, it just breaks my heart for us to say, well, you know, they passed. Well, us trustees, our superintendent knows what it means they passed. Parents may not know, and community definitely doesn't know. So I think the least we could do is to make use of the resources that we have. And right now, that after-school program is one of the best resources that we have.
Yes, ma'am, and we're reaching out to you. Ms. Montalvo?
I know, these, numbers look, the way they look, but it's a new test. I agree.
Exactly. New standard.
At a conference, I attended a session, and they basically said, the content is gonna be different. It's gonna be harder. And so, when you're so used to multiple choice, and the answer's right there in front of you, but now you have to write it out and you have to, do that critical thinking. It's gonna take a while to adjust, to adapt to what they're asking. So, let's use this as a baseline, and let's just work from here,
And I can tell you, our campuses, through our professional development in December and January, that's what they did. This was the first benchmark number 1 that we took, and they used this as a baseline to say, what do we need to do? And I can tell you that our teachers are harder on themselves than we can ever push them, because they're competitive, and, principals try to motivate and encourage, but they want more for their kids. They want them to be at that master's level. And so, we could easily, if we wanted to hide where we really are, we would have presented something to you that would have looked great, and that's not where we are. We want to tell you where we are, what we're doing, and we're moving forward to do the best that we can for kids.
It's the next benchmark.
Thank
The
you.
next benchmark for the reading mountain is going to be 6 to 7 weeks from now. I think we had 7 to 8 weeks from the first full week, which is last week, so it's about 7 weeks.
Okay, so late March? I can't
And
tell.
reading is a little bit different than math, because they take the reading before they take the math.
Right.
So the next benchmark is not all at once. They take the reading,
Oh, I
and then
see.
they take the math a little bit later.
Okay.
Because the math is taken later on during the year, because they have to grade that right.
Right.
But I can get you those dates, so
I
we
don't
can.
know, I'm just wondering. And
Thank
I'm
you
sure
so
there's a lot of
much.
work between here and then, right, to prepare the students for that second benchmark.
And Ms. Gonzalez is like, why did I come?
Thank you.
I just wanted to say something. So So what we have is, we want, the rigor is really up there. So we have 30-some% where you're looking at their approaches, but the reason is because if you really, in essence, if you really look at it, students right now, like at a 4th grade level, that's really kind of like 8th grade math, 7th grade math. You know, so it's very rigorous. Like Mr. Flores said, we're growing, we're getting them there. It's really, it's not where we start, it's where we end up.
Exactly.
But we do praise that growth, because it's continuous growth. We also had an amazing training that CNI, Dr. Cantu, put together on the teachers, 3rd and 4th grade, getting together and looking at the extended constructive responses, which is now what students are supposed to do. They have to be able to answer this constructive response. They have to cite evidence, and these are 3rd graders who have no knowledge in 2nd grade, coming from 2nd grade, going to 3rd grade to do this. Now, I will just make, I'll comment on something. I looked at the 5th grade reading STAR test last year. The topic was on camping. For 3rd grade, the topic was on the Texas salamander in the rivers of Texas. So look at the rigor there. Students, especially in the community here where we live, what knowledge do our children, our students have of that? Now, they could more relate to a topic of going camping or camping in the backyard or something. So that's a very, there's a very wide discrepancy when it comes to that. So taking all these things into consideration is something that, I would, as a principal, I would ask for you to please keep in mind. We are doing everything that we can to be able to provide that extra support to our students through morning tutorials, before school tutorials, after school tutorials, through the ACE program, during the day interventions and whatnot. So we thank you for your questions, and they're valid questions, they really are. I mean, I was a 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 4th grade teacher myself. So I know where we come from and how difficult it is to get there, but that growth is what's important. And seeing and recognizing the rigor of where, we're asking them to go from not only, and somebody said paper, pencil, multiple choice. Now students are on a computer. I know my son, who's my youngest, my 20-year-old, he needs a teacher in front of him, and he needs that paper pencil. And it is very abstract when you're on a computer screen, but that's the way that we did it. We made the decision as a district, which I believe was the best decision, to start last year before, to get them started with an online version of the test, because we knew that that's the way we were going, the TEA, which a lot of our students, especially our 2nd graders right now, are having difficulty with that. But that's why we want to start them at that level, so that we build from there. And Ms. Martinez, I'm making reference to you and your son. That's exactly what we are trying to do as a district. That lingo, that dialogue isn't just with 3rd and 4th grade. It starts with kinder, and I welcome you. I mean, I invite you to come to our data room at Sanchez, so you can see. We start them at pre-K. We start them at kinder with a CLI test, and we take them, and we have approaches, meets, masters, even though they're at kinder level, but because that way the students get familiar with that terminology, that academic language, for lack of a better word. So, it's something, it's a process, but I think that it's fair to say that we are growing, and any gains is a gain. So we have to look at, even though the child may not have passed at that point, but is there growth? And that's what we try to motivate our students to show that growth, and be able to show that, through their data binders, through the data, the data room and the data walks that we have with them, so.
I have a question, I've never been a teacher or anything like that, but, when you mentioned, they went from camping to something else that our kids are not familiar with, how does the state or TEA let us know that this is the area we're gonna, is that what it's called, TICS, or what is it,
you talking about topics on the test? Are you talking?
No, I'm talking about, if they're gonna test them in this area, well, shouldn't they let us know?
Oh, we
that
have
you're
blueprints. We have blueprints. It's, yeah, for the STAR, it's blueprints of readiness skills. It's letting them know what we have to do.
Because
So,
it really wouldn't be fair
Right.
to test on something that
Well,
we've never.
but when they
But it's-
change the test, so these are the blueprints, and they change the test, and all of a sudden I'm going from second to third grade, and the test has changed, there's new blueprints. So it's not necessarily that
So
when
the
I was.
teachers don't know what they're supposed to be?
Oh, no, I know in third grade,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't know back in kinder, first and second, what the new third grade readiness standards, I mean, what it was gonna look like.
There's a possibility the child was never exposed to that.
You were
in the first and
exposed, but the way they test, they used to say, for example, in third grade, for example, I would read a selection and I would answer questions. Now in third grade, you read two selections, you have to compare the selections and answer questions that said, from this story to this story. So, is it reading still? Yes, but is it higher level thinking? Because it's not just what color was John's, coat. It was, look at John's coat, look at Roy's coat. Was John's coat, and then it's not a piece of paper you can look at, you gotta scroll up and down on the computer to go back to the selections to see that. It's different. It's just teaching them that.
Well, that's almost not fair. I mean, no. I
Yeah, no, Ms. Casas, and we are there with you. When
Uh-huh.
the state said we were gonna get to do paper if we choose to, I was the first to say, Anna's doing paper, because it would drive me crazy. But they only let us do what percentage of paper?
1%.
1% of paper, so that's, for
Now-
us,
now-
it's like
Now
20.
take a third grader who's never taken typing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they have to type responses with 2 fingers.
Or even
I
high
would like,
schoolers.
I would like TEA to explain to me as a trustee, how that, what is the thought process with that?
Because they're having to go
Because if
up
they're
and
not-
down
If
and
they're
up and
not
down.
giving the teachers and that's what I got from your comparison. In other words, the teacher didn't know that they were gonna ask this question versus this question.
Well, we
And
know that, we know the
yeah.
style, we know the stems, we know the types of questions that they're going to get.
Uh-huh.
What, I think what you're referring to is, the
The
salamander.
camping and the salamander.
The topic we don't know. As when I was a fourth grade teacher, I could have had compare contrast, a how to, a story, we didn't know.
We
That's
didn't
why we
know.
had to teach them
All of them.
This
Exactly.
was a topic, and in all defense for the third graders in the state of Texas, our third graders were the only ones who were tested using two, I was gonna say,
Paired selections.
two paired selection. Everyone else had one selection to write about. Whereas our third graders, who are brand new to testing, we expected them to go back and forth between two selections. Now,
And they're right about it.
That's very interesting. I need to, somebody can actually, that's ridiculous.
so one of the things that what Cavazos Gonzalez was referring to is when we went back and we looked at our data and the responses that the students were writing, but there's another part to it. We were also training our teachers on how to grade the responses. So we were seeing some discrepancies there. That is the training that we did for our teachers. So we brought back, because now we have samples of what tens look like. Now the state has provided that. So now we have samples that we can give our teachers and say, you graded this a 5 or you graded this a 10. What do you think now? So that's when we brought in our third and our fourth and our fifth graders, so that they can collaborate together.
Very interesting. Okay.
Very good presentation, sir. Any questions of
Thank
Mr.
you.
Flores?
Thank you, sir.
I think we've asked a lot, right?
No,
Thank you.
And thank you.
And
for
Mrs.
your-
Cavazos Gonzalez. And thank you for your input to them.
Yes, thank you.
We're now on the consent agenda. There are 3 items on the consent agenda: the monthly tax report, the quarterly investment report, the change of regular February board meeting from February the 12th to February 13th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve the items listed on the consent agenda?
Make a motion.
I have a motion by Mrs. Martinez.
I second.
And a second from Mrs. Johnston. It's been moved and seconded to approve the items listed on the consent agenda. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. The only item, for items to consider and possible actions are purchase orders over 50,000. And that is a discussion to consider and take possible action on purchase orders over 50,000 is the purchase of 1,045 Chromebooks for campuses.
Good evening, Board President, Board members, Mrs. Flores. On our district improvement plan, Goal 4, Performance True Strategy 1, which indicates that all our students from 1st grade through 12th grade will be provided with a Chromebook or laptop for instructional purposes. Based on our technology inventory that Mr. Vela and his team collected, we currently have 1,045 Chromebooks that are over 3 years old and have no warranty. These Chromebooks are beginning to slow down, having difficulty with daily instructional tasks, and struggle to even hold a charge. We have received 4 quotes that are in front of you from companies for 1,000 Chromebooks. After discussing this with our technology director, Mr. Jose Vela, it is recommended, looking at all of the 4 quotes, that we would ask Dell Technology offers better service and pricing for a total of $296,000.
And we will be using IMA funds, state funds for this, as well as general funds as well. And so, after we get up to date with our Chromebooks, because we use those for testing again, then we will have a cycle of, and $250 a year that we will budget, or $300, whatever it ends up being, but we will get on a cycle that we can budget. But this will catch us up, and again, we need those because now our students test on the computers.
Yes, sir.
From these, which ones are the ones, is it any of them, have warranty on them? And what is the warranty like?
They all have warranty
They all do.
of 3 years,
Okay,
but the one with technology, Dell Technology, it's included
okay.
with the price of $296,000. If you look at Howard Technology, for every computer, it's $32. I think that's what it is, right, sir? And then also for white glove services. So you see how they start adding up all these prices? Here, Southern Computer Warehouse, it's a 3-year at $69 a piece for warranty.
And does that include, like the office software? anything
Yes,
else?
all of that will be included in here. Am I correct, Mr. Gonzalez?
That's correct.
Because,
It's included in
costs.
the operating system licenses.
Okay.
So it's the recommendation of the board, administration, we purchased 1,000 computers with Dell Technology.
I make a motion that we accept the administration recommendation.
I have a motion by Mrs. Casas and a second by Mrs. Martinez. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much. It is now 6:58 PM, and we are moving into closed meeting pursuant to Texas Government Code Chapter 551. Thank you, sir. It is now 8:51 PM, and we are now reconvened to open session. Let the record show that Superintendent Torres received an overall rating of exceptional on her contract. Are there any action items from the closed session?
Yes, Madam President, I move to extend the contract to January 30th of 2027 and increase the annual salary to $165,000.
Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Mrs. Martinez. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any other motions?
I move to approve and establish the employment position of Director of Security as recommended by administration.
Do I have a second? I have a second by Mrs., it's been moved and seconded by Mr. Vidones and Mrs. Casas to approve and establish the employment position of Director of Security as recommended by the administration. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any other motions?
I also move to approve contract for armed security services with MLG Protected Services as recommended by administration.
A motion by Mr. Vidones. Do I have a second? I have a second by Mrs. Casas. It's been moved and seconded to approve the contract for armed security services with MLG Protected Services as recommended by administration. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. District announcements?
Yes, on January 16th, which I believe is tomorrow, we will have our neighborhood spelling bee at CE No?
So yeah, we're presenting them due to
Oh, okay,
the weather
okay.
at the same time.
Which would be the 23rd, I'm sorry.
This Wednesday.
Okay.
17?
The 17th, I'm sorry. January 17th at CE Bell. We have a Academy team building training on the 22nd of January here at 5:30. We have internship dinner on January 23rd here at the Lee Cafeteria. We have our annual parent conference on the 25th of January, starting at 5 p.m. at the high school. All city choir on the 26th of January at CE Bell Auditorium. Then we have our district spelling bee on the 6th of February. And then we have our district planning committee meeting on the 8th of February.
And, yes.
Anything else?
And Ted, I mentioned.
Any questions of Mrs. Ramos? If there is no other business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
I have a motion by Mrs. Montalvo and a second by Mrs. Martinez. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It is now 8:54 p.m. and this meeting is now adjourned.
Mrs. Casas,